In the intro nugget to the series, we talked about that example of assigning VLANs to interfaces within the ACI fabric. Now, by the end of this nugget, we're going to understand that VLAN pools are how we do that configuration, and we're also going to be able to describe how VLAN pools work, as well as the different options that we have when adding them to our environment. A lot of us have been here where we've been trying to add the command switchport trunk allowed. And by adding this to an interface, we control which VLANs are allowed on that trunk. If we don't use the command to allow every VLAN on an interface, but let's say we have two switches and we really only want to allow VLANs 10 through 20 on it. Well, then we'd say switchport trunk allowed VLAN 10 through 20. And this would allow VLANs 10 through 20. And we've probably all made the mistake at some point of getting on there and saying, ooh, I want to add VLAN 21. And so we say switch trunk allowed VLAN 21. And what we don't realize is in the background, it actually gets rid of 10 through 20 and only allows VLAN 21. That's when we need to, of course, use the add command. So we'd say VLAN add 21 instead of just simply saying VLAN 21. The reason I bring this up is because VLAN pools are equivalent to this command. So a VLAN pool allows us to select the number of VLANs, let's say 10 through 20, and allows us to apply that VLAN pool to interfaces via all the other constructs that we talked about in the intro nugget, such as domains and attachable entity profiles and such. But a beautiful thing about ACI is that we don't have to worry about accidentally destroying our own VLANs. We can just simply go into the pool and add another VLAN to that pool if we want. And it's a lot more intuitive and a lot less error prone, which again is part of the goal of ACI. So what we're really doing here is we have a switch in our environment, let's say, and we have a set of interfaces. And we want to assign these VLANs to these specific, let's say the three interfaces that I just drew here. But again, as we also saw in the intro, we can't simply assign the VLANs straight to the interfaces like we traditionally do in NXOS mode. We need to assign the VLAN pool instead to a domain. Now we'll talk about domains more in subsequent nuggets, but for now we need to understand that we can take the same VLAN pool and assign it to multiple domains. So this would be like if we wanted to assign this VLAN pool to maybe not just these three interfaces here, but maybe somewhere else in the network we've got another two interfaces and we'd want to assign the same VLANs there. Again, we want to perform configuration one time here by creating the VLAN pool and then extending it out multiple times as needed to prevent the errors that we talked about again up here with the fact that if I have to go around and do this switchport trunk allowed VLAN command throughout my entire environment, the more I have to do it, the more error prone that process is. It's also more time consuming that way. We want ACI to simplify and reduce our procedures. Now there are two different types of VLAN pools. We have static pools and we have dynamic. Static pools would be pretty much what we've been describing, where we say, you know, I want to add VLANs 10 through 21, we'll say, in this case, to the interfaces up here. And we're just going to, it's just like we did switch trunk allowed, those VLANs are allowed regardless of anything else. Really, what we're driving at is regardless of whether anything down here is using it. And so what dynamic pools allow us to do is if ACI is in control of not just the switch infrastructure, but also down here, let's say now this is a virtual switch inside of a hypervisor host. And let's say ACI is actually able to control that via the APIs. So long as the connectivity all happens seamlessly, which is what ACI is responsible for doing, we no longer need to worry about whether it's VLAN 10 or 11 or 57 or 128. The number is irrelevant, again, so long as the connectivity happens. So for example, let's make a dynamic pool that has VLANs 51 through 60 in it. And let's say a new virtual machine comes online in our hypervisor environment. Well, ACI can leverage the APIs to add VLAN 60 to that interface and also add VLAN 60 to the interface up here. Or maybe it picks 59, or maybe it picks 53. We don't have to worry about it anymore. It's dynamic, ACI handles it for us, and it's one less thing we have to worry about. Now, if your question is, whoa, Jeff, the VLAN defines the connectivity. How do we get connectivity if the VLAN IDs are mismatched? Well, within an ACI environment, that's taken care of with endpoint groups, or EPGs. And if that's an unfamiliar concept, be sure to check out the ACI skill called the ACI logical model. However, keep in mind that we would absolutely have to use a static pool if we're tying this back to a legacy infrastructure, because our legacy infrastructure does care what VLAN IDs there are. And so if there's a VM out here that's on VLAN 55 and ACI assigns it VLAN 60 within the ACI infrastructure, well, that's going to cause communication problems this way. We'd have to make sure that the VLANs are statically mapped in that case so 55 can be used on both sides. VLAN pools relate back to the switch trunk allowed command in legacy and XOS environments, except as we'd expect with ACI, we configure it once and apply it many times. So we can take one VLAN pool and assign it to multiple domains. We also learned that there are two different types of VLAN pools. We have static and dynamic. Dynamic is really for virtual environments where we have API access to the virtual switch, otherwise we'd want to use static pools. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.